Imagine waking up in a city where the early morning silence is shattered by screams that don't seem human. Empty streets, a faint wind, and a distant sound that whispers that something terrible has just happened. The kind of thing that, if you knew the details, wouldn't make you sleep soundly for weeks. And believe me, what you're about to hear today will change the way you view what we call justice. So before you begin, subscribe to the channel and comment on what you would do if you witnessed something like this. Because after this story, I doubt your response will be the same. Have you ever imagined walking down a quiet street and suddenly hearing a sound so disturbing that the air seems to stop? That's exactly what happened on a seemingly ordinary morning in Mexico City. The sun hadn't even reached the sky when a chorus of screams tore through the calm, echoing through the alleys and colorful walls of the capital. No cars passed, and for a few seconds the world seemed to freeze, as if the city itself had held its breath. Something terrible was happening, and no one dared leave their homes to find out what. Minutes later, curious onlookers began peering through the windows, trying to understand what was behind those inhuman screams. What they saw was a scene straight out of a nightmare. A man tied to a post in the center of a small square. His body was immobilized with ropes so tight they cut through his skin, and the terror etched on his face was enough to chill the blood of anyone who looked at him. No one approached. Everyone just watched in silence, as if fear had become an invisible wall between them and the condemned man. But the strangest part was yet to come. Because that scene wasn't a coincidence. It was the culmination of a much darker story, one that unfolded days earlier in the shadows of the city itself. People didn't know it, but that man had become the symbol of something much greater than his own guilt. And understanding the reason that led him to that lamppost is what will reveal the true face of justice on the streets of Mexico. It all began a few weeks before that morning. A rumor began circulating through the old neighborhoods of Mexico City. A heavy, uncomfortable rumor that no one wanted to believe was true. A man had been accused of brutally attacking a local woman, and the news, even without concrete evidence, spread like wildfire. Barroom chatter, street corner whispers, and social media posts quickly turned suspicion into a verdict. Within hours, the man's name was seen as a curse, and the entire city seemed ripe for punishment. Public anger grew uncontrollably. Outraged families, outraged friends, and even those unfamiliar with the case united in a shared thirst for justice. The problem is that in places where fear is constant and trust in authorities is virtually non-existent, justice often becomes distorted. It was then that a specific group heard the story, and, unlike the others, didn't just comment. They decided to act. They were known for imposing their own rules in the city's shadows, a notorious gang, known for their ruthless method of solving problems when the law failed. And so the hunt began. As the accused tried to hide, the footsteps of vengeance approached, silent and calculated. No one knew where they would come from or when they would strike, but one thing was certain: they always got what they wanted. That city about to dawn would soon see the cruelest meaning of the word justice. But what they would do to the man when they finally found him would be something no one would ever forget. When they finally found him, there was no warning, no chance to defend themselves. The door to the small house where the man was hiding was violently broken down, and within seconds he was dragged out amid screams and laughter that seemed more of pleasure than rage. The neighbors merely watched through the cracks in their windows, too frightened to intervene. Amidst the confusion, his arms were bound with thick ropes, rendering any attempt at escape futile. And there, in front of everyone, a punishment ritual so bizarre that even the most cold-hearted would hesitate to watch it through would begin. One of the men, out of nowhere, opened a jar of peanut butter. The accused looked confused, unable to understand what the gesture meant. One of the attackers began spreading the cream over the man's body as if preparing live bait. Laughter grew among the group, and fear soon gave way to absolute panic as two enormous dogs were brought in, hungry and restless, their eyes fixed on their prey. The terror in the man's eyes was desperate, but his pleas for mercy met with no response. The sentence had already been handed down. The minutes that followed were a mixture of chaos and silence. Chaos in the screams, in the desperation, in the horror that the wind carried through the streets. Silence in the cold stares, in the people who turned their faces away, pretending not to hear the sounds echoing in the distance. And as that brutal punishment took shape, a message was etched in the shadows of the city. There, justice wore no uniform. It walked with a mask and hatred. But what no one knew was that this would be only the first chapter in a sequence of horrors that would forever mark the heart of Mexico. When it was all over, the sound of the screams finally ceased, but the silence that followed was even more disturbing. No one approached the body, not even the curious onlookers who minutes before had been watching from hidden windows. The streets were deserted, the doors closed, and for a moment it seemed as if the entire city had made a pact with fear. The sun was beginning to rise, casting a pale light over the scene, revealing the trace of what had happened, like a scar left on the soul of the dawn itself. The news spread quickly, but with a strange coldness. No one spoke aloud, no one named names. It was as if terror had contaminated the language, turning every comment into a whisper. Some said the man got what he deserved. Others, more silent, simply prayed. Fear and indifference mingled on the sidewalks, and every corner seemed to hide a secret. This wasn't just an execution, it was a warning. A clear sign that between the people and the powers that be, fear had won. And as the yellow police tape tried to blot out the blood from the square, a heavy feeling hung in the air. This wouldn't be an isolated incident. People realized a line had been crossed and that what came next could be even worse. Because when a city learns to live with horror, it becomes part of the routine, and at that moment, no one imagined that the next act in this story would be so insane that it would freeze the entire country. It was early morning when a man was driving home along the road to Cadereyta Jimenez in northern Mexico. The weather was calm, the breeze warm, and the distant rumble of cars cruising along the highway brought a false sense of normalcy. It was then that he saw something strange illuminated by the headlights, what appeared to be logs dumped on the verge of the asphalt. He paid it no mind until the smell began. A strong, bitter odor impossible to ignore. This wasn't wood, not even garbage. It was something much, much worse. As they approached, the discovery transformed the tranquility of the night into pure terror. Scattered across the road, 50 bodies, men and women, were arranged as if part of a macabre ritual. Many of them were mutilated beyond recognition, and the precision of the cuts made it clear this was no amateur's work. It was a message, a signature, and soon the name behind this brutality would dominate the news. Los Zetas, one of the most violent cartels Mexico has ever known. For them, the road was not just a place, but a stage for displaying their power. When morning came, reporters, police, and soldiers thronged the scene, trying to capture the horror amid the silence of the dust. No one could understand how such an atrocity could have happened unnoticed. But that was the cruel irony. Fear had made everyone close their eyes. The massacre of the 49 was not just a message to their enemies. It was a reminder to the entire country that the terror there needed no hiding. And most frightening of all, that wasn't even the worst that was yet to come. In the hot, dusty heart of territory controlled by the CJNG cartel, a man known as Ghost Rider fell into the wrong hands. His nickname didn't come from movies or comics, but from something much darker. He was famous for incinerating his victims, leaving their burned bodies exposed as a warning to the living. The name, which once inspired fear in the streets, would become the symbol of his own downfall, because that day, the cameras wouldn't be turned on to showcase his power, but to record his downfall. Surrounded by armed rivals, his face covered in sweat and despair, Ghost Rider seemed to understand the fate that awaited him. The men around him laughed, mocking his nickname, setting the stage for calculated revenge. One of them opened a can and the smell of fuel filled the air. "Let's see if you still like fire," whispered one of the captors seconds before flicking his lighter. And then with a sharp crack, the flames found his face. The fire rose like a living wave, transforming the man into a grotesque reflection of his own name. The recording of the execution quickly spread through the darkest corners of the internet, like a trophy of death and destruction. For the CJNG, it wasn't just punishment, it was spectacle. A reminder that no one, not even the most feared, escaped their reach. That moment marked a new level of brutality in the cartel war, and the country seemed to plunge deeper into an abyss where cruelty became routine, but the abyss still had more to reveal. And the next case would be so surreal it would challenge any notion of humanity. The first reports emerged in Los Mochis, a town that, until then, seemed far from the epicenter of the violence. It was early January, and local police had received strange calls about red bags dumped throughout the town. When authorities arrived, they discovered that inside each bag were human body parts, cut and scattered as if someone had followed a macabre ritual. But the horror reached its peak when a janitor, while cleaning the entrance to City Hall, found something that made him freeze. A sports bag left next to a staircase. Curious, he bent down to pick it up. As soon as he lifted it, a soccer ball rolled slowly across the floor. Only it wasn't an ordinary soccer ball. The object was sewn with human skin, and a face, a real face, had been stretched over the leather, its lips sewn shut and its eyes forced shut. Beside it, a note scrawled in crooked handwriting read, "Happy New Year. Because this will be your last." This wasn't just a warning. It was a cruel message from the Sinaloa cartel, addressed to rivals in the Juarez cartel. And the victim, a man named Hugo Hernandez, had made the fatal mistake of crossing into the wrong territory. The brutality of the scene shook the city, but it also brought a frightening certainty. The boundaries of human evil were expanding unchecked. The ball incident became a symbol of the insanity that ruled the streets, and people began to realize that the next act of these groups could surpass any imaginable limit. Little did they know that what was about to come would make it all seem like just the prelude, because hell, at this point, hadn't even begun. It all started with a video that surfaced in the darkest parts of the internet, a video no one was supposed to see. The scene was simple, even banal. A man tied to a chair, surrounded by calm voices that seemed to be chatting about nothing. But it only took a few seconds to realize something was deeply wrong. The man's body was mutilated, parts of his face were missing, and yet, he still moved. The most terrifying thing of all, however, wasn't what they were doing to him. It was what was playing in the background, a cheerful, vibrant song completely out of place, Funky Town. The soundtrack transformed that nightmare into something almost theatrical. While those responsible committed unimaginable acts, they laughed, joked, and maintained the same naturalness of those simply passing the time. The music continued to play, bringing an unbearable irony. A song that once brought nostalgia and lightness now became the anthem of horror. The contrast between the danceable rhythm and the torture scene created an experience almost impossible to process, as if humanity itself had shattered there, in that moment. This wasn't just a recording. It was a portrait of how deeply evil can disguise itself as normality. The video spread through forums, secret chats, and even international media, always accompanied by a warning: do not watch. Those who saw it never forgot it. The image remained etched in the memories of thousands of people, a perverse symbol of how cold human beings could become. The case Funky Town became more than a story about violence. It became a reminder of how commonplace evil can seem when it disguises itself as distraction. But in the end, after so much horror, one question remained. Was there still room for good amidst so much chaos? After witnessing so much horror, the inevitable question is, how did we get here? How were human beings able to transform suffering into a spectacle, and cruelty into something almost banal? The most frightening thing about these stories is not only what was done, but the calm with which it was done. The laughter during the punishment, the joyful music during the massacre, the silence of the witnesses. All of this shows that violence originates not only in the hands of monsters, but also in the indifference of those who watch and choose not to act. Each of these stories, from the man tied to the post to the road of 49 bodies, from Ghost Rider to the ball made of human skin, until the case Funky Town, compose a cruel portrait of an ancient truth. When justice is lost, evil disguises itself as order. And it is in this fine line that fear becomes government and revenge replaces the law. The tragedy lies not only in the victims, but in an entire society that has grown accustomed to ignoring the cries of pain of others. When horror becomes commonplace, humanity begins to disappear little by little, without anyone noticing. So before closing this video, remember, evil doesn't begin with shouting. It begins with silence. And the only way to prevent the past from repeating itself is to choose the right side, even when the whole world refuses to do so. Be kind, be empathetic, be human. True power lies not in hurting, but in protecting. So, care for those around you. Share this content with those who need to see the weight of their own choices. And subscribe to the channel to continue exploring stories that challenge the limits of reality. But that, above all, remind us that there is still light, even in the darkest places. And if there's one thing these stories have made clear, it's that true terror lies not only in brutal actions, but in the coldness of those who carry them out, and in the passivity of those who watch. Every act you've heard about here is a distorted reflection of what human beings can become when they lose respect for their own lives. Horror isn't just in the hands of those who do evil. It also grows in those who grow accustomed to seeing it. But amid so much darkness, there's still something that cannot be erased. Choice. The choice to be different, to protect instead of punish, to spread justice instead of fear. So, if this story made you think, if it somehow touched you, don't let that feeling fade away. Like, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, because here the truth isn't hidden. Each new video brings a reminder of what happens when the world forgets empathy, and the importance of keeping it alive. Your support is what keeps this kind of content alive, and what empowers more people to be reached with reflections that the world tries to hide. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder of the value of compassion. Comment on what struck you most, what made you think or gave you chills, and tell me, do you think there's still hope in the midst of all this? Because in the end, The difference between us and chaos lies in the small everyday actions. And here on this channel, we never hold back when faced with what needs to be said.